Welcome to the Latin MedTech Leaders Podcast, conversations with leaders who have succeeded or plan to succeed in Latin America. Please subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, etc. Today, our guest is David Bigio, Department Head of Biomedical Engineering at Universidad de los Andes, or University of the Andes, in Bogota, Colombia, the leading private university in Colombia and one of the top universities in Latin America. Hey, David, it's great to have you here today. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Julio. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure and it's an honor to be here.
Awesome, David. All right, so let's get started here. So let's speak about your journey, David or David. I guess I'll
Yeah,
call you David as we
yeah.
call you
Let's
in
go.
Spanish.
Let's go with David.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your journey. How is it that you got to where you are today?
So, Julio, I graduated as a mechanical engineer from the same school where I am now, Universidad de los Andes in Bogota. At the time, biomedical engineering did not exist. This is an engineering that started becoming a formal program much later. But nevertheless, at the time, our professors and directors had a relationship with one of the teaching hospitals in Bogota at Universidad Javeriana. It was Hospital San Ignacio. And the idea for some of our professors was to pair engineers with doctors that were finishing their residence. And in my case, I was very fortunate to be put in a project with an orthopedic surgeon. Happens to be Dr. Adolfo Ginás, who today is the medical director of Fundación Santa Fe. And we were given the challenge to work on a partial knee replacement, on an issue related with reconstruction of the knee. And that for me was a great thing that happened, Julio, because it really made me aware of the fact that I had an interest and a talent for developing medical devices, for thinking about solutions and so on. So that is something that stayed with me for a very long time. I wasn't able to put it in practice right away because when I finished, the hospital there, even though they saw a person like me useful for talking about problems and trying to solve things, they didn't really have in their um, human resources department an opportunity for a person like me. So I went and did some other things, Julio, and perhaps we can talk about that. But eventually, I returned to the university um, to teach innovation and entrepreneurship to our biomedical engineers because that is something that I was very passionate about. I wanted our engineers to learn about that, and the director of the program at the time also saw it as an important thing to teach them. So I came back to do that, and we can talk about in more detail if you want.
Yeah, let's talk about your experience in Silicon Valley. You have over 30 years of experience working for multinational companies, startups, and that's a fascinating piece of your story. So, can you
Yeah,
describe a little bit of?
sure. So before I got there, I had an opportunity to work for an oil field services company. I worked for Schlumberger for a number of years in the oil field in the platforms in the North Sea. I was also in the jungles of Africa, and I started to become more oriented towards the development. And I joined a research facility at Schlumberger in Texas and started developing technology. And I was learning about some other things that happened in Schlumberger. And one of the divisions that the company had was involved with electronic transactions. They were getting into some parallel business or actually different business from the oil field, and electronic transactions was an area where they had patented the smart, they had purchased the patent for the smart card, and they wanted to develop something. The thing is, Julio, that they sent me to learn about marketing high technology in Santa Cruz in California. And I went there and I learned about how to market high technology, and I became aware of what was happening with the internet and Silicon Valley and the startups and this mentality. And then, Julio, I said to myself, one day soon, when I am going to be in control of my own destiny, this is the place where I want to be. Because I had visited Palo Alto in California and I thought, this is paradise. I want to be here. I want to have a chance to be here. So I went to Palo Alto after I left Schlumberger. And after a while, I joined HP Labs. And there, it was a beautiful time because the internet was happening and so many people had so many ideas about what could be added to the internet. Some of them were silly, but some of them were powerful. But it was all about the internet, and it was all about startups, and it was all about companies coming to pitch um, to HP about what we could do for them. So that was an area where I learned about what it takes to become a startup and the difficult obstacles that some of them face, and pitching and business plans and these kinds of things. So that was something that I wanted to also add to my interest in the development of medical devices.
Fascinating story. And I think the region, in Colombia specifically, Bogota, Universidad de los Andes, is very fortunate to have somebody with your background here, because very few Latin Americans are exposed to the medical device innovation ecosystem, or or the technology innovation ecosystem in general, in the Silicon Valley area, and to come back to your home country and to share your knowledge and experiences to with your students. I think that's quite a gift for the region, and thank you for that. I mean, that's
Yeah, I feel also very fortunate myself, Julio, to be able to return
exactly.
to my home country and to my school, um, because I am who I am thanks to them, and I am the person I am thanks to growing up in Colombia, thanks to studying at
Exactly.
Universidad de los Andes. And
Yeah.
when I had the opportunity, um, I thought that was a good way to return. And I am actually learning a lot in this new adventure. And hopefully, Julio, I'm also being able to contribute. So we are all winning here.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. I'm so happy to hear that. All right, David, let's talk about trends in Latin America and Colombia. What's happening that makes Latin America and specifically Colombia a great place to do research, animal research, human research, development of medical technologies, and commercialization? I mean, what do you see?
Sure. Well, so Julio, let's state an obvious thing that we all experience from the recent events of the pandemic, right? So it happens to all of us, it affects all of us, and we can see the level of preparedness or the lack of it that we all had in different ways. So this was an eye-opening event for everyone, including the United States, that all of a sudden sees that they are not able to provide some of the things because either workers are not going to the factories to work, or most things are coming from Asia, and Asia has shut down because of the pandemic. And it's an eye-opening event where we see that not producing things locally is a problem, and we become aware when something like this happens, and we can go from the simple things of face masks that all come from China to the more complex things of ventilators that people were going to need for the pandemic, and we realize we rely on somebody else for everything, for production, for commercialization. And I think, Julio, that two good things happen as a result. First, we become aware of the fact that we need to have a little bit more control of our own destiny. And the second thing that happened is that great collaboration spurs to try to solve the needs. And so people start working together, and we see an effort to go and join forces. And that, I think, is going to be very beneficial. But we saw some things that were alarming, Julio, in some of our neighboring countries. For example, that you run out of oxygen to treat patients and things like that. That should open our eyes, and that should give an opportunity for us to know that this is not the last time something like this is going to happen, and that we need to be better prepared. So yes, it is nice to think about all of the fancy developments of new devices and new technologies and telemedicine, which we are going to talk about, because I think COVID opened an opportunity for telemedicine or for remote care, but also, Julio, to think that we need to have our bases covered, our basic things covered. I think it's also very important. So a trend that I see is that we are going to go back to basics. Julio, we have not produced vaccines in Colombia for humans for many, many years. For whatever reason, I think that this is a moment where we should reconsider things like that. We may not have the technology and the capability to develop a vaccine from scratch, but we should certainly be able to produce vaccines that companies are going to license to companies here. So these are the kind of things that I would say. Going into thinking about how the pandemic affected um, access to health, Julio, I think that a big opportunity has opened up for remote care, for remote diagnosis, which even after this pandemic passes, should give us an opportunity to think about the people that live in remote areas, that should not come to the big cities as the only alternative to receive good care. I think that now we have an opportunity to develop technologies and improve technologies that will be able to bring good healthcare, good diagnostic to remote areas. I think that this is a good opportunity, and this is a trend that is happening. Uh,
Absolutely. Mhm. Yeah, continue. Go on. I'm sorry. I thought
no,
you
and
finished.
I was just going to add on to that, Julio, that the other thing that is happening is the understanding, or the need to understand, the treatments that work better compared to others. So I'm thinking about data science, machine learning, artificial intelligence, terms that we hear. We don't know exactly what they mean, but we know they are good, they are fancy, they are nice to talk about. I think that here, for example, we it took us a while to learn what was working for patients, Julio. And imagine if we could really build a cooperation where not just in one hospital or one local area we learn about what happens to a patient that comes in with a certain condition, but we join all of the information and we analyze this data and we say, look, this uh, procedure works and it works well, and here is the data that support it. This medicine works, this treatment works, this course of antibiotics work. We have a nice opportunity to cooperate with others for better results towards the patients, which is something that we should all strive for.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. All right, David, let's move on and let's talk about your current work. I mean, what interesting technologies your students are working on? And I also like to speak about the obstacles that they have in the local ecosystems. What would you see happening in Colombia that will make Colombia a country of innovation, medical innovation, please?
Great, Julio. So let me tell you a little bit about the biomedical engineering department at Universidad de los Andes, just to give you a sense for the kinds of things that we do. So I'm currently, very fortunate to be, the head of the department, which is an opportunity that I welcome, knowing that some of the things I can do is bring more visibility to the great talent that we have. So I'm going to take this opportunity to share with you some of the things we do with the 9 professors and the 9 research areas that we have. Just to give you a sense, we work in the area of biomechanics, something that is very top of mind on people when they think about biomedical engineering. They think about biomechanics, they think about human movement, they think about prosthetic devices, and that's an area where we work. We also work in computer vision. We have one of the top 100 scientists in the area, in Dr. Pablo Arbeláez, who directs a center for the learning of information, artificial intelligence, not only for health application, but for general application. But he happens to be our professor, and a lot of our students are interested in that. We have research in the area of biomaterials and bioprinting. So you mentioned briefly um, animal trials and trials using animals, something that we know, Julio, is becoming very difficult to do. So one of the things that we are developing is we are developing artificial human skin so that we can do trial of cosmetic products and pharmaceuticals on artificial skin that resembles human skin so that we don't have to use animals. I think that this is a good potential for companies that are interested in trialing things related with the skin. Just to continue, we do research in nanomaterials to help us improve drug delivery methods, and also to try to understand how some diseases like the Parkinson, if we can bring the right pharmaceutical product to the right element that is affected, could be better treatments. We have a professor that have been studying and working on the cardiovascular system for a long time. So we are developing some devices that are built here for for patients. For example, just to give you an example around that, Julio, for infants that are born with cardiovascular problems, neonatal, that are congenital heart diseases, most of the devices that exist uh, are made for adults. And here we saw that we could help some doctors at Fundación Cardioinfantil that had some idea on how to minimally invasive go and address some problems in these patients by modifying some devices and building them specifically for neonatal patients. So these are the kinds of things that we are able to do here very efficiently and at a very good cost or very good value, which we hopefully will talk a little bit later. We have also worked in mathematical modeling, Julio, and it became very important now when we had the pandemic and we wanted to assist our officials to measure the impact of their decisions or the recommendations. Mathematical models support decision making. And we had in Professor Juan Manuel Cordobés a very good mathematician and a group of people that were able to help. We have another researcher that works on brain signals. So he wants to help understand better problems related with sleep, Julio, something that is affecting many, many people for different reasons, but also to be able to gain from what we learn. For example, how can you learn things better by sleeping in a certain way, or by having some things done to you while you're sleeping or before, or something like that. One of our professors is also an expert in genetics, and she is studying behavior. So she's studying, how, for example, post-traumatic stress changes the genetic makeup of a person and what will happen in the future. And finally, we work in areas of innovation and entrepreneurship where we are um, giving the students the tools to become entrepreneurs, to solve the local problems, to start the small companies, to stop a little bit the reliance on everything coming from the outside, or perhaps developing something for the companies that listen to this kind of podcast to say we can give a little help to the students to bring their ideas to complete products. So this is quickly an overview of what we do, Julio, which I don't know if it answered the question because I
It
think your
does.
question had more to it.
Well, there's another part of the question that we can address in a moment, but to kind of summarize what you're saying and to pinpoint an opportunity or two opportunities that I see here. I mean, first of all, it looks like you guys are doing some world class research, and you have some world class faculty in your department, David. And the global medical device ecosystem can take advantage of your platform or of your infrastructure and your resources and at a much lower cost than doing the research in developed countries, because we all know that costs in places like Colombia, especially now that I just read the news a couple of days ago that the Colombian peso is the most devalued currency in the world right now. So it's really a bargain to collaborate um, and to buy services from labs or places like Universidad de los Andes, and that's one thing. And another thing is the intellectual property that you guys may be generating. I don't know how much volume of intellectual property you guys are generating every year, but if there is something unique, something that you see as that has great potential, certainly if you're looking for funding or a partner that can take that intellectual property to the next level, setting up a company in the United States and developing the technology in the United States for global markets, not necessarily local markets because they're probably too small. But if the intellectual property that you guys are generating has global impact, I'm sure people in the Silicon Valley, Minnesota, in Boston, etc., the hubs of medical innovation will be interested in collaborating with you to commercialize, to be the vehicle for commercialization, development and commercialization of that technology, and to bring it to global markets.
Yeah.
And
So
yeah, go ahead.
let me address the first part of the comment, Julio, about the capabilities that we have here, and certainly the fact that the cost is going to be much lower compared to doing it in other countries doesn't necessarily mean that the quality is going to be inferior to that of the United States, of Europe. We have world class hospitals here and doctors that provide very good care. So to do clinical trials and to bring some of the hospitals here, we at Universidad de los Andes now have a program in medicine. So we are also teaching medical doctors at our school, something that is relatively recent. And we work together with our teaching hospital, which is Fundación Santa Fe. But we have also relationship with, I would say, many hospitals here in the area, or any hospital that we need to work with, we can work with. And we can do the support that the clinical trials need here with our professors, with our students, undergrad, postgraduate students. We have good talent here, and people are much more interested in solving real problems and working in real needs than in some theoretical aspects. We will continue doing research and expanding on the basic knowledge, but we rather work on real problems and help people that are making real solutions. So it is definitely an invitation to look at our country, to look at our school, to look at the resources that we have here, to do clinical trials with us, to help us, because that's another beautiful way to teach our students, to give them tools, Julio, that they don't have to go into other countries to learn how to do things like they are done in the US and in Europe. So that will be another win-win situation at very good value, I would say. And the fact that the peso is where it is at the moment compared to the US dollar, it's another advantage. And as you know, Julio, because you are a big advocate of this and you have been working, the regulatory uh, uh, department here, the INVIMA, the FDA equivalent here in Colombia, is also aware of the fact that they need to improve on their processes. So things that used to take very, very long time don't take so long now, thanks in part to work of people like yourself have done in that area. And that is also something that is very beneficial. So that in the area of of the clinical trials and the things that could be done here, and then the second part on the development of the intellectual property. So one of the things that was not well done before, Julio, in my opinion, is that the universities here in Colombia, and I will speak for my own university, did not appreciate the potential that commercializing the intellectual property had. But one of the steps that you need in order to do that is to create a technology transfer office, or strengthen a technology transfer office. We now have one, um, which is very well equipped to take advantage of the intellectual property that is developed at the university, which I think also, if we see the model of universities around the world and universities in the US that have made the commercialization of their intellectual property a very good source of revenue, that is something that we have not utilized here enough, Julio. So we patent, and we do have professors that patent some really good innovations, but we stop there. We feel happy that we have a patent and that we can put it into our statistics. I would love to see that we start working with companies that see the value of those patents and help us bring those patents to the real world, into commercial products, um, and everybody gains, which is also where I think things will work, is when everybody will gain and will benefit. We have some good ideas here, Julio. Um, I give you an example. That catheter that I was just mentioning for the intervention of neonatal patients that have congenital heart disease was something that was patented, and it could be a good thing for medical device companies that would like to use that. I have been working myself on a challenge that was given to me to treat burn patients, Julio, and and when a patient is burned, the especially with deep burns, not the superficial burns that are going to heal without an intervention, but the deeper wounds where you are going to need to remove the devitalized tissue and create the capillary bleeding that is going to promote tissue regeneration. That is something that is it's a procedure called dermal abrasion, and it's done not just here in Colombia, Julio, but in many places around the world, even in the first world countries. It's done with sandpaper. It's done with
Sandpaper.
sandpaper because it's very effective, or with mechanical devices that are difficult to control and don't provide a very good result for the patient. So we were given this challenge by the wound care unit here at Fundación Santa Fe to come up with an alternative. And we developed a device that, when you see it, looks like a very, very simple device. And people that see it say, well, anyone could have come with that. And that, I think, is what is great about good innovations and good
Yeah,
inventions, is that they become very obvious after you see them.
yeah,
So we
exactly.
developed a device, Julio, that converts the hand of the surgeon into a medical device. We have added the abrasive surface directly onto the glove that the surgeon uses to remove the
Fascinating.
vitalized skin. We
Fascinating.
have filed for a patent, and hopefully, it's one of those ideas that people that commercialize medical devices would say, we would like to bring that to the world and to the plastic surgeons that are working on dermal abrasion for burn patients or other patients. So we do have some good things here, Julio, that hopefully others are going to be interested, and together we can develop it.
Yeah, yeah. Animal trials. You guys have a great animal facility in at the university, and that's something that nobody has looked at yet. I mean, companies pay like $50,000 for one animal in the Silicon Valley area, whereas in Colombia,
Yes.
it's at a fraction of the cost with great
We
talent.
we have
Human
a research
trials.
lab. Yes, we have a research lab with Fundación Cardioinfantil. We are currently in a trial, Julio, where we are looking at alternatives to graft for cardiovascular disease that are from animal sources that have been properly treated. Animal cells have been removed, and the grafts have been prepared in such a way that hopefully could be an alternative for humans. And we are at the moment starting a trial to validate some of the improvements that we have done on those grafts. So yes, you are right. There is a very good facility there, even though it's a lot tougher to do animal experimentation. It's still possible here with all the ethical considerations, with ethical committees on the side of the hospital and the university, doctors that are extremely proficient in this area, veterinaries that are involved also in the care of these animals. And a lot of improvements have been since the time that I work with my orthopedic doctor friend, where we used animals to validate our partial knee replacement, um, in ethical ways, because we all care for the animals. So I know that people feel bad when we use animals, but if we do it in the right way, we will benefit the society. And it's
Absolutely.
not that we can
Mhm.
do it here because nobody cares. No, we care as much as everyone else, and we can do it the right way. So don't think that we're going to cut the corners or be cruel to the animals, because we
Good to
won't.
know. Yeah, good to know. Yeah, my experience with the human trials in Colombia has been very good. I mean, strict guidelines, ethical approvals, regulatory, national regulatory approvals of the Ministry of Health, and every, I mean, everything has been done by the book. And I'm sure animal trials can also be done by the book. Because that's what companies want at the end. Because you want to show your investors and your partners, your strategics, that you did the proper animal trials at top facilities. So, and the other opportunity is licensing of IP that you guys are generating. I mean, that's such an overlooked possibility. That I mean, the innovations that you're describing are something that nobody, I'm sure nobody thinks that they're coming from a country like Colombia. But
In that sense, Julio, we welcome the help,
yeah,
because when we go out here into our local environment to look for support, to look for financial support, to look for investment, to talk to a venture capital here about one of these investments in a medical device or a procedure or something, where you have very uncertain results, and in addition to that, it takes a long time, as you well know. Some of them say, my money is safer on a building, on a brick building, because I can see where my money goes. I know that at the end it is going to be sold. I may not make as much money, but my money is going to be saved. So here I would say that we do not have the maturity to see the potential. I hope that COVID will open the eyes and say, look, we cannot continue relying on the outside for everything we do. We need to start investing locally in developing some of our own solutions. And even for the multinational companies that are here, if they see that they can invest some of their money developing local talent, that talent can bring ideas and products to their companies and to the research centers at a very reduced cost. And that is good for everyone. So please invest in us, invest in Colombia, look for the young groups of biomedical engineers all around the country that are developing beautiful products and ideas. And we are starting to educate them earlier in their careers, Julio, just to be better prepared to do this. We are starting to tell them work on a real problem, build a solution, build an economic model, understand the financial implications of what you're doing, just so that they are better prepared to have these conversations, Julio, with potential investors. Because an investor would like to speak with a person that is somewhat educated and aware of what is coming, and we didn't have that before, Julio. So you could probably underestimate the scientists, because when it comes to the business model or the sustainability, they haven't thought about that, and therefore you may not want to start the conversation. We are trying to change that. We are trying to make them aware of these kinds of things from the university, before they graduate and go and try to do this and get frustrated and decide that they will go and just take a regular job because they need to earn a living. So we can be useful, Julio, and with your
Yes,
help, we can be more useful.
absolutely, absolutely. I mean, podcasts like this are a good platform, and it's also worth mentioning, David. And I'm proud of the news that Paola Calvaci, one of the students at your program, is part of the Stanford Biodesign Innovation Program
Fellowship.
Fellowship. I
Yes.
mean, that's a fascinating news. I mean, I'm so happy to hear that because she's probably the first Colombian ever that is accepted in the program and the first female also.
I think
So
you're right. So Julio, this brings me an opportunity to tell you that the program that we're using to educate our students is a program that was developed in Stanford a little over 10 years ago, and it's called
nice,
Biodesign. So they
nice.
have a methodology to bring solutions to health related needs to life, and build companies and so on. So we didn't have to reinvent the wheel. We took biodesign from Stanford, and we have adapted, and we are teaching that here. And then recently, because of our relationship with the professors at Stanford, and in particular Dr. Paul Yock, who is one of the original creators of this program, says, you guys have great talent over there. We need to have some of that talent here in our fellowship program. So we thought about this wonderful candidate. She is a medical doctor educated here in Bogota at Universidad de los Andes. Then she did her master's of biomedical engineering at Universidad de los Andes, and she started, complementing her knowledge of medicine, because unlike the U.S., Julio, where a medical doctor has an undergraduate education in another field, it is not the case here. So as you mentioned, Paola Calvaci is a person that acquires her medical degree, then her master's in biomedical engineering, then goes to Harvard and starts working on projects that bring, machine learning and artificial intelligence. She learns about programming languages. She starts working um, on the development of technology that will detect um, infections in catheters while the patients are hospitalized, and using some artificial intelligence to support the decision. No, so she's getting into this very complementary set of education and knowledge. And when we are asked for a candidate that we think could be suitable for this program, she is ideal, but she had to survive a very rigorous process of recruitment. She was successful, and she's been in the program now for the last couple of months as a fellow in this incredibly powerful biodesign fellowship program at Stanford that produces some incredible innovations and some good companies. And hopefully, Paola will be a person that has always wanted to acquire the knowledge to apply it here back in Colombia, her country, and in the region in Latin America. And just to give you an additional point about her, Julio, since you mentioned, um, she has been producing a podcast like yourself, which is called the Miocardio podcast. And it's a podcast about cardiology in Spanish for Latin America. Very powerful tool to educate the region, bringing some speakers from the best institutions in the world, and for the benefit of everyone. So we are helping the region. She is also very passionate, like myself, about working in this region, about helping the region, about bringing the level of this region up, Julio. So another good source and another potential contact for you.
Yes, yes. Well, we're proud of Paula's accomplishments as fellow Colombians.
Yes,
All
indeed.
right, David, it's about time to close the show. Thank you so much for being here. I mean, it's been a fascinating conversation. I really enjoyed it, and I'm sure listeners got a lot out of it, certainly. So, and I'm sure they learned so much about the potential that a place like Universidad de los Andes and your team can offer to the medical device innovation industry in general. So thank you again, David,
Yeah.
and have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much, Julio, for the opportunity, and thank you for the work that you do.
Excellent. Bye bye.